Great. So, well, this week we've got a really interesting life hack for you, which is how can you really get over and learn something without getting fed up with it, without thinking, I don't want to do this anymore, and getting to that stage where you're like, this is just not for me. So normally when you start something and when you want to learn something new, you do because you're interested and you're passionate and you want to learn something fresh. But why do we give up? Why do we get to a certain stage and then go and throw the towel in? Well, tonight we're going to give you the secret to, not just our success, but the key to the chest of getting through that phase where you just had enough, you were ready to surrender, and you throw the towel in just when things were just starting to get interesting. And we'll come into why it's getting interesting through the call. Sean.
Yeah, it's I'm sure what we're about to go into and talk about, the elements of that I'm sure a lot of you have heard of before, heard about. Both CJ and myself had certainly heard all about this sort of 4 steps to mastery, or 4 levels of learning and so on. But there's other elements that we weren't aware of, and almost provide the why certain elements and pushing through certain boundaries are so important, and often why we don't push through those boundaries. So I suppose, CJ, should we go straight into it and go into sort of 4 levels?
For sure. Let's open the bag. So some of you may have heard this before. So there are 4 steps to mastery. And those are number 1, which is unconscious incompetence, number 2, which is conscious incompetence, number 3, which is conscious competence, and number 4, which is unconscious competence. And these are well researched, and you can Google this and you'll find loads of information about it. But there's certain aspects of the phases we get to, and there's reasons why we don't get past a certain phase. And that's what we're going to try and uncover and unpick for you this evening, and give you the toolbox to allow you to push through, and the reasons why you need to push through. So, Sean, do you want to talk about unconscious incompetence?
Yeah, certainly. This is, we've all been there. This is where we're learning something new. Pick the analogy that works for you. It could be learning to drive a car, learning to play golf, or a particular sport. And that's the point where you start to take on that process. You start to learn to drive in that. And, all of us, before then, really, you don't know what you don't know. And then as you go into that, you sort of pick things up, but that you're uncovering things, bit by bit. You don't actually know until you actually start doing it, what it is you don't know. And so you at that very first stage, you're sort of fumbling through things, and then you're starting to build upon things as you pick them up. There's really not too much to go into unconscious incompetence, really. I think it's where you get into the next steps of things, getting a little bit more deeper. CJ?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I've seen firsthand. I've gone through the 4 stages, and I'm a kite surf instructor, so I see students go through this all the time, and it's fascinating to watch. Now I'm more self-aware about the 4 steps, which is what we're talking about tonight. It's being really self-aware about where you are in your stage and your journey to learning a new skill. And interesting, when they turn up and they're learning to kite surf, they ask some great questions, and it's they just really don't know anything about it. Some of them do. They think they know everything about sport, and some of them do. They literally just come and hone their skills. But they get other people that turn up and they know nothing about any of the equipment or the safety side of things, and the risk assessments, and all that other sort of detail you need to go into. So again, it's about when you step into that world with an expert, or you step into a world where you're literally picking the books up for the first time. You have no idea what you don't know, and that's the unconscious incompetence. You don't know, as Sean said, what you don't know. Cool. Okay, so phase 1, that is not knowing what you don't know anything about. Next step is conscious incompetence. Sean, do you want to go through that one?
Yeah, well, this is the beauty of which I think a lot of us, this is where you know what you don't know. You've asked the questions and things like that, and you start realizing that, oh, hang on, I don't know that, and I don't know that, and I don't know that, and I don't know that. And, and this is where all of a sudden this thing comes into play and starts causing, depending on how big your why is and how much you want to do something, will determine how much you let this jump in. And this is the point at which we sort of meet frustration. This is the point where all of a sudden, we realize there's so many things we don't know. We're trying our best. Things aren't always working out, out the best. We're trying to think through everything and realizing that there's all these other things we don't know, but we're having trouble just doing the basic stuff at the moment. And that's where that frustration builds up. And that's where, we start to it's very easy to sort of get annoyed about things. And the difference at this stage is, as I said, referring to big enough why. People who become great at things have a big enough why, a big enough reason to push through this stage. People don't have a big enough why, a big enough reason that this is the sort of stage where all of a sudden they can sort of feel, what, maybe it's not for me. The brain starts creating the excuses. It steps in and sort of says, well, I tried it, but it's not for me. I tried the kite surfing. I couldn't get up on the board the second time. So you know what? I'm going to step away from this. It's not for me. CJ?
Yeah, it's a critical stage. And actually it's when they're really curious. And as Sean alluded to there, when you're finding that you've got a driving passion to do something, driving passion to learn something, that shapes the size of your reason to do it, the size of a reason to pursue whatever it is you're trying to learn. If that's big enough and you've got enough incentive to push you through, then nothing's going to stop you. You're going to bulldoze through this phase. But it's also the phase where actually you get some really intelligent questions, because this is the point where you're thinking, hold on a second, have I been told about this? Or they're holding something back, and you start to really consider the processes that you're going through and really sort of step through, okay, I know I'm doing that wrong, but why am I doing it wrong? What can I do better? And if you're coaching someone, this is where they'll come up with the questions and say, okay, I know this isn't quite right. I know that I'm doing something wrong here because it's not, the outcome isn't right. So you get some really intelligent questions at this point. But as Sean alluded to, this is also the point where we have the most frustration. So that's 2 of the 4 phases, and the next phase is conscious competence. Now I've been badgering Sean to do the sort of me on this one. I'll pick this one up, mate. So conscious competence is you know what you know, and this is where you're consciously in control. And what do I mean by that? Well, it's like when we'll use driving as an example, because a lot of people drive. It's when you're consciously checking in your mirrors. It's when you're consciously, right now I need to put the clutch in. Oh, I'm coming up to a hill. I need to do a hill start. Right, to do that, I need to do that process. It's when you're learning to play a new sport, or it's when you think, right, okay, if I go over here, I can get the ball. If you're playing football, I can get the ball into that position. Or when you're playing tennis, for example, if I throw the ball up at a right angle and I get the right angle of attack with my racket, I'm going to get a good serve over the net. Those sort of, you know what you're doing, but you're still thinking about all the processes. You're still thinking about the mechanics of how everything works, how it's all going together. But actually, what you're starting to do is starting to understand how you interfacing whatever it is you're doing, whether it's a language, an instrument, whatever, a new skill, you're starting to understand the way things come together, but you've got to think through it. Sean?
Yeah, it's like I said, the driving analogy, it's you're thinking through, you know all those bits and pieces, and you're changing the gear. Well, I suppose I say changing the gear, showing my age now. I suppose most cars are automatic now, aren't they? Electric cars even easier. But you're thinking through all those steps, and that takes a lot of capacity, and that is draining. But you've overcome that sort of, you've overcome the conscious incompetence. I suppose this is the point you start to feel, it can quite easily feel a bit cocky. And I think on the kite surfing thing, thinking back to that, I know when I got to that stage, this is the point that, I know it now. Yeah, I know what to do. I'm thinking things through. I know what to do. Boof, why am I in the water? So it's very easy at that stage to become a bit overconfident. and think that yeah, I've got this. Yes, you're still thinking things through, but this is that transition stage into our next one. So should I lead it and throw it back to you then?
Go for it. Go for it.
So yeah, into finally the unconscious competence. So the final one, CJ.
Okay.
Yeah. So unconscious confidence. I don't know what I know. So this is that time when I'm going to use driving again, is where you've got to your destination. You've not really thought about any of the controls. It's when you're playing an instrument and you literally just pick it up and you can knock out a tune without any thought or any really thinking about what you're doing. You just know you know how to do something. This is a rewarding side of learning a new skill. You know how to do it. You've mastered. You pretty much mastered it. We can always learn, of course, but there's an element of mastery involved here. This is where you get to the point where there is no thought required. You literally zone out. You just do it, and it happens almost naturally, almost instinctively. It's where the muscle memory is being developed. It's where you're running on autopilot in your brain because you know what to do. You know how to coordinate yourself mechanically to do a skill, or if you're talking a language, you're thinking, and your thoughts are in the language. You're not having to think how to translate, so you're naturally there. So it's that point of, I would say mastery is a good word, because yes, acknowledging we can always learn and improve. It's a point where actually there's no thought required. This is a natural skill that you've developed, and it's something you can tick off and say, yeah, I do this. Yeah, Sean?
Yeah, it's really that instinctive moment, isn't it? It's we go back and forth between kite surfing and driving, but that's because I suppose a lot of people probably relate to driving. We can relate to the kite surfing as well. But from the driving analogy, you're not thinking about what gear should I have it in now? When should I indicate? Or should I check my mirrors? You're not thinking about that. You're just doing it. Same with the kite surfing that you're doing. Now, the other thing as well is, doesn't mean that you can't slip up. It doesn't mean you can't get cocky at that point. Yep, been there, can do that as well. But it also means that if you slip up, you're more likely to be able to recover, because you don't have to think, oh, it's going wrong. What do I do now? Smash in the water. It's like it's going wrong, and then instinctively you try and right it, and before you know, you've nailed it. You managed to land a jump that wasn't going so well. Instead of being teabagged into the water or something like that, you managed to get things under control. You got out of it. People will be say, how the hell did you do that? You think, I have no idea. It just seemed to work. And same thing in a vehicle. If you hit a bit of black ice or something like that, you lose control of the car. All of a sudden, instinctively, you're able to right it and regain control. And that's the difference. It's that it becomes part of you. There's no, it's embedded in the subconscious, and there's just another operating system going on, as opposed to in the conscious, which is such a very small fraction of our mind having to think things through.
Yeah, it's interesting. Once you unpick the whole how do you learn in the 4 steps. I mean, there are, of course, you don't just literally go from one step to another. There are phases. You do phase in between the steps. But once you become self-aware, or you can have an element of metacognition, so understanding, okay, where am I? What's going wrong here? Once you can get that self-awareness, it's a really powerful tool. I mean, this is where the life hack comes in, is understanding where we normally bail out. Where do we throw in the flag and say, I've had enough, this is not going to work. And then having the self-awareness to go, hold on a second, I know what's going on here. I really want this, and if I want to achieve and I want to be successful, I now know that this is what's happening. This is a process that's going on inside my mind. This is a process going on inside my body to learn a new skill and get to where I want to be in terms of developing whatever it is, new sport, new skill, whatever it is. So the big reveal here is actually at what phase, what step do we think the most people bail out? You shouting at the screen. Let's hear you. We've got power of technology. We will be able to hear what you're saying. Sean, do you want to go for the big reveal?
Yes, step two, conscious incompetence. And I alluded to it a bit earlier about that's where we often feel the most frustration. Uh, and if your why is not big enough, things like that, there's motivation only lasts so it can only push you so far. If it's not part of your identity, if it's not really something that you are absolutely passionate about, that you totally resonate with, this is where the mind will start playing tricks, make up the excuses. Oh, it's getting a bit too hard now. I've given it a shot. It's not for me. I'm not so good at it. I can't. I can't drive like a Formula One driver, or I can't, do all these kite loops and all these tricks and that. I'm going to give it up. But that is the critical key, because if you look at some of all the greats, your Einsteins, some of your great business people, Rockefeller, Carnegie. Rockefeller, as an example, was able to concentrate and singly think on something for up to 5 minutes, was able to push through for the frustration. Einstein was very much able to push through the frustration, able to live in the space of a question, instead of I have to have the answer. No, why is this? They felt that frustration build up, right? Okay, that means, and here's the thing, it can be used as a bit of a compass needle. When you're feeling that frustration, you're on the right path. You're doing the right thing. That means that you are actually building the part, the synapses that are connecting, and you're actually following the right path. CJ.
Yeah, it's interesting. So our mind is very good at making excuses, and that's our conscious mind, of course. It's a bit like a Labrador. If you throw it a stick, it will go and fetch the stick. So whatever answer we want, it will come back and give us the answer. So when we're feeling frustrated, we go into one of the primal fears, which is the fear of not being good enough. We're not good enough. We can't do this. And that's what the Labrador comes back. That's what your mind comes back and tells you. Oh, you're not cut out for this. Too difficult. Why don't you go and do something else, which you really love doing instead, like being in your comfort zone, instead of going through the growth and pushing through out of your comfort zone into this period of growth and frustration, where you're going to learn and master this new skill, and you've got it. This is where the self-awareness is absolutely critical. So now we're aware that it's when we know what we don't know, and we're asking questions and we're finding it really difficult, and things don't go to plan, and we think we've got it, and then something else happens. It's at that point that we need to have that light switch on, be awake, and understand that I know what's going on here. Do I really want this? Tick, yes I do, otherwise I wouldn't have started it. How much am I vested? How much how much am I committed to this? Tick, otherwise you wouldn't have started. And having the self-awareness to I know what's going on here. It's the Labrador. It's literally running off, and it's getting me the most easy route to keep me in my comfort zone, because the conscious mind doesn't like growth. The conscious mind is here to keep us comfortable. The conscious mind is there to make us relax and chill and not grow and just try and have an easy life. Well, here's the thing, life isn't easy, and if you want to get the most out of life and you really want to grow and develop and squeeze every ounce that you can out of this journey that we've got, and we've been I'm so grateful for the journey I'm on. I want to get out there and I want to learn more skills. I want to try new stuff all the time, even now. When I say even now, I'm only 50, 51. But last 3 months ago, I thought I've started to learn to wakeboard, and I know I'm absolutely in that conscious incompetence position at the moment, because my mind is telling me don't sign up, don't go riding at the weekend. Where I will sign up. I will be signing up after this call. I'll be booking my slots and I'll be going up there, because I know I'm in the conscious incompetence mode, and my brain is just trying to make me comfortable and give me all the excuses. Oh, you got too much to do at the weekend. You could be with a family, you could be doing this, that, and no, hold on a second. It's going to be half an hour out of my life. I'm going to get my balls busted, going dragged around a wake park, and I'm going to love it. And who knows, I might have that aha moment and come out the other side being consciously competent at something new, one aspect of it maybe, and that's taking me on the journey to get to conscious competence. So don't let your conscious mind trick you and fool you into you're not good enough. You were born good enough. And that's one of the key messages that the EMF teaches, is that everything that you seek is within. And if you get control of this, then anything is possible. Take a look around you. Everything which is man-made was, guess what? It was made by human beings. Which means that you're capable of doing something similar. Don't be fooled into thinking you're not capable. Don't be fooled into thinking you're not good enough. You were born good enough. You just need to get a grip of this, get out there, push through the conscious inconscient competence barrier and master that new skill. Sure.
Yeah, I like your comment there about everything look around you, the man-made things. Every one of those things was first conceived as a thought. And to get it from a thought to what it is physically, right now, there was a lot of frustration involved. Just imagine, any people coming up with different inventions and things like that. Edison and the light bulb. He didn't crack that in the first couple of times, but there was a lot of frustration there. Hundreds of different versions and iterations, and finally got through. I like the analogy of with pushing through that frustration, almost like walking through the snow. You take a path through the snow and you look back and there's like a set of footprints. But easily with a bit of wind and other things, they can be sort of blown over. But if you keep treading that path back and forth, eventually you not only wear through the snow, you wear through the sort of the grass underneath and wear that away, and all of a sudden that path is well trodden. And so even when the snow vanishes away, there is that clear path of where you've walked back and forth to continually reinforce that, to continually ensure that that is well trodden, that you've been back and forth over that time and time again, to ensure that that is now a solid path or a solid connection in your synapses. And a solid connection. And that's the thing. And that's why the likes of Einstein, the likes of Edison, all those people, they were able to live in a space of a question and keep pushing through that frustration, keep pushing beyond that, trying and trying again, until all of a sudden they cracked it. And then, they got through. And as CJ said, this thing up here, its purpose is to create an excuse, because we're trying to avoid the fear that we're not good enough. It will create the most amazing excuses conceivable, and we've all done it many times, but it's about recognizing when we're doing it. And the more you start to recognize that, instead of walking along sort of sleeping awake, as our mentor Peter Sage would say, the more you realize and recognize those patterns and recognize when you're doing it, the more that you are able to, I know what's happening now. I'm feeling the frustration. My mind's giving me excuses. Right, I need to push on here. Push through that.
Yeah, wise words, Sean. So those are the 4 steps to mastery. Don't forget, wake up. Notice when you're being hijacked by your own conscious mind. And if you're self-aware, that will give you the skill and the power to push through conscious incompetence, that frustration, and master a new skill. I think, Sean, unless you've got anything else, I think that's probably where we are this week. But don't forget, 2 weeks' time, we'll be back with another life hack for you. What it will be, you will find out in the next week or so, and we'll post it in the group. We're really interested in knowing what you guys want us to talk about. Put it in the comments, put it in the group. Let us know. Drop us a line. If you're seeing this on a different media platform, drop us a line. We'd love to do some of these on some of the points and pain points and frustrations in your life. Hopefully we can take you on a journey together, which will allow you to grow and live the life of success that you would like to have. That's it for me. Sean?
Yeah, just reiterating what he said, really. We're here to serve you and add value. So, pains and frustration, things like that, let us know, and they're topics that we can talk about. But until we see you in 2 weeks' time, thank you very much for watching, the catch up on that, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Take care, everyone. See you in 2 weeks.